Yumimi Yoshizawa is your average iron-deficient anime girl. Always flopping out of bed, always late to class, so deeply unremarkable even the narrator bullies her.
ほっといてよ。
Like many others in this particular subspecies of 2D girl, Yumimi is prone to fainting, crying, yelling, using cartoon violence for comedic effect, and other irrational goblinoid behaviors.
丸い丸いまん丸い。
Naturally, this wet tissue of a girl becomes the world's most important person, as she and her friends get caught up in the middle of an alien ghost invasion, the fate of the world now resting upon her brittle shoulders. She is the heroine and main character of Yumimi Mix, developed by Game Arts.
Game Arts.
Written and illustrated by veteran mangaka Izumi Takemoto. First released on the Sega CD and then updated for the Sega Saturn under the name Yumimi Mix Remix. Where have I heard this before? Game Arts appear to be mostly known for Lunar and Grandia, which I'm sure at least one of you are familiar with. I'm more of a Gun Griffin guy myself, their first-person mecha shooter series. That one's in the future video pile for sure. Also, yes, I did get a new microphone with a pop filter and everything. Hopefully you noticed the jump in quality right away. If all goes right, then my nonsense will be much more pleasant to listen to. Yumimi Mix was first released in 1993 during the industry's initial push towards full-motion video and 3D graphics. But Game Arts, in a sudden stroke of genius, decided to fill the CD-ROM with animation. This exact line coming from Yoichi Miyagi, the company's CEO. They would make use of the CD's increased storage capacity to create a game full of highly detailed early digital animation, and they knocked it out of the park, as you can already tell. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I should probably show you what the game actually is before gushing over its visuals. So let's see.
この番組はドコモグループ、サントリー、森永製菓、ダイハツ、悪い子の提供でお送りします。
ごく普通の女子高生ゆみみに起きる不思議恋、そしてお約束の物語、インタラクティブコミックゆみみミックスメガ CD から。
You heard the man. While so many games during the early 90s employed the interactive movie format, Yumimi Mix is an interactive comic, also known as manga to normal people. You watch the scenes play out, and are sometimes given a few choices of what to do or say. These don't lead to deep, branching paths or anything. It's less of a serious story choice system and more of a way to build your own manga pages. Choosing the next joke, picking the next stupid thing that happens. The game actually gets a lot of mileage out of this. For example, after Yumimi wakes up from her weird horse dream, you get a choice between sleeping in or getting ready for school. Sleep in and her mom will throw ice cubes down her shirt. On her way to school, she'll stumble upon these mysterious floating orbs. If you decide they're ghosts, the game moves on as normal. But pick any other choice and the game springs upon you a hilarious bit, where it lists a dozen different choices that bear no relation to the floating orbs, including Maltese dogs, tiramisu, a reference to Takemoto's earlier manga Aoi-chan Panic, and a joke about the German science fiction novel series Perry Roden. Not even the fan translator knows what's going on. All choices have their own illustrations and unique dialogues. All the while, the game gets increasingly angry at you for not picking the obvious choice and wasting time, until it forces you to pick the ghosts option. But wait a minute.
透明人間です。よくわかりましたね。
This might be the greatest instance of fourth wall humor I've ever seen in my life. There's an inherent weirdness to video games as a medium that makes it a perfect match for Takemoto's brand of self-aware absurd comedy, and it pulls this off while keeping the manga format basically intact. It's executed so cleverly the whole thing comes off as whimsical and effortless. Yumimi meets her friends on the way to school. This is Sakurako, a curious fusion of various anime archetypes. She's the hot blonde, the nerdy skeptic, the loud girl, and the glutton all in one, though her greatest asset is obviously her awesome vampire fangs. Next up is Matsuzaki, a member of the newspaper club and somehow even more of a doormat than Yumimi. Naturally, they get along very well. The trio discuss Yumimi's ghost sighting before getting interrupted by the director. He's in charge of 3 different school clubs, so all the characters call him something different. Director, President, and Vice President. I'm sure he has a real name, but who cares? He spends his time pestering Matsuzaki to take photos for the newspaper club and getting violently beaten by girls. This is also where Yumimi starts her game-long habit of making really weird noises. She is voiced by Akiko Hiramatsu. Her other roles include Miyuki in You're Under Arrest, one of my personal favorites, and also the teacher in Azumanga, which explains a whole lot. Bizarrely, the woman herself is also featured in the PlayStation FMV visual novel bowling simulator The Star Bowling DX, where she is joined by other Heisei seiyus who recruit you as their new bitch bowling buddy. As amusing as it was to watch these normal-ass women do their exaggerated anime girl voices and mannerisms, I couldn't figure out how to actually bowl properly, so this whole thing just felt like I was being made fun of. While running an errand for her teacher, Yumimi stumbles upon the so-called ghosts again. This time, they appear to have come out of a hole in reality. Yumimi faints. Both the ghosts and the hole are gone by the time she wakes up. Curiously, she notices a ribbon on the floor, along with the paper she was carrying. Another student, named Rie Morishita, appears to help her retrieve the papers. Her only character quirks are being very shy and demure, but also being a fan of Saburo Kitajima, which I assume is just a joke about her liking old people music. When their hands touch, some kind of explosion happens, completely changing Rie's personality. Some would say for the better. She mentions small holes showing up all over the school, clearly referring to the one we just saw, and says it's up to Yumimi to close them, including a big hole which will supposedly open up in the school gym tomorrow night. Rie snaps out of her gay haze once the two girls break contact, and wanders off confused, much like how Yumimi was upon waking up. Now it's up to her to somehow explain all of this to her friends. But thankfully, there's another apparition to help convince the others. An emergency meeting is held at Wick Donald the next day, and Rie is spotted walking outside. And as expected, she's totally clueless when asked about what happened yesterday. This is where we get a formal introduction to her. Now I'm afraid I must grind this video to a halt to fulfill my duties as a YouTuber and pretend to be really outraged and uncomfortable that a silly anime game would dare to have a running joke where the narrator lists the measurements of its teen girl characters. Oof, that's a big yikes right there. This didn't age well. I'm kidding, of course. I'm not going to do any of that because I don't have AIDS. You and I are sensible people, so we know it makes perfect sense for a game starring agitated middle schoolers to have some very tame, raunchy humor. And we don't have to feign shock at this as though we've just bore witness to a crime. We can go further and conclude that trying to ascribe a lecherous or predatory character to something as quaint as this game is a clear sign of mental derangement and thinly veiled see-thing xenophobia, a favorite of the Western gamer even now. Our heroes exchange handshakes with Rie, but just like before, touching Yumimi's hand summons her dark side once again to continue her endless rambling about the hole in the school gym. Everyone is left terrified but also motivated to sneak into the gym and finally see if anything happens. You can choose between jumping over the gate or trying to find another way in. Here's what happens when you pick the coward option.
さっきから気になってたんだけど、このテクテクテクっていう音は何？私たちの足音よ。なるほど。
Yumimi Mix was not the only collaboration between Game Arts and Takemoto. In 1997, they would once again team up for the game Dinosaur Island, or Dyna Idan. What I can tell you about it is that it features dinosaurs on an island, and it appears humans can communicate with them through song. Much like Yumimi, it's an
interactive comic
with dialogue choices and multiple endings. It's probably pretty great if I had to guess. Yumimi Mix was directed by Hiroaki Okabe, who is also a programmer for Dyna Island. Amazingly enough, Okabe teamed up once more with Takemoto to create a game called Mermaid Days, released in 2020 for mobile. I'll let the man himself introduce his exciting new project. Greetings, Izumi Takemoto here. So then, Mermaid Days. The content is adventure, but basically you can just think of it as a manga and you wouldn't be wrong. You wouldn't, right? In the description section it says, please enjoy this slightly strange tropical story, but actually it's not tropical at all. There are palm trees growing in the schoolyard though, so in other words it's that kind of story. Though that doesn't explain anything really. Anyway, please enjoy Mermaid Days. Ujauja. The brilliant mind behind Yumimi Mix is still as sharp as ever. Ujauja is Takemoto's nonsensical catchphrase that goes into all his author comments. Mermaid Days was a two-man project, with Takemoto doing all the art and writing, and Okabe handling all the programming and web design. Sadly, this means there's no animation or acting to speak of. It's more comic and interactive. The Mermaid Days website features a lengthy blog post by Okabe on the 30th anniversary of Yumimi Mix, where he shares a lot of very interesting behind-the-scenes info on the game. For example, how they decided on using anime art in the first place. Using CD-ROM solved the storage issue, but the image resolution output to TVs at the time remained around 240 vertical pixels. Video RAM size hadn't changed either, and the system could only display about 61 colors simultaneously. Given CD read speeds back then, streaming video could only display about 16 colors. So if you calculate backwards from those constraints, the kind of imagery that could be shown effectively in CD-ROM was anime-style art. Simple color blocks, no gradients, resolution not too important. Okabe was excited at the prospect of working with Takemoto. His work had never been adapted outside of manga at that point, so Okabe felt inspired to do it justice using their fancy new CDs, but how? Streaming video on the Sega CD looked like this, so that's obviously off the table. They tried to scan animation cells, but quickly found the digitizing process would totally butcher Takemoto's art. So, in a pinch, Okabe suggested recreating everything using pixel art, which is what we're seeing here. Drawing each frame pixel by pixel was obviously impossible, so they developed a dedicated paint and animation tool called Meganim, running on the Sharp X68. Okabe is amused at how blunt the name was in retrospect. Mega Animation. The Sega CD was called the Mega CD in Japan, if that wasn't obvious. Meganim allowed them to scan with far greater speed and accuracy than before, converting animation timing sheets into script files the game engine could read and execute, a process Okabe compares to early scripting for visual novels. He comes across as rightfully proud of Meganim in his blog post, talking about it as though it's a piece of obscure alien technology. The development of Yumimi Mix resulted in some genuine breakthroughs for the industry. In his words, almost every part of this process was a world first. By the end of development, Game Arts had its own animation department, with around 7 people hammering out over 7,000 frames of animation, filling half a box of 200 megabyte MO discs. They were burning through time and money, but Miyagi, the aforementioned CEO of Game Arts, always remained supportive of the project, as he saw it as an investment in the future of interactive animation. The future in question being one other game, I guess. In hindsight, that future didn't quite arrive. The industry soon shifted to 3D polygon graphics. They were simply easier to produce than 2D animation. But, of course, there are works like Takemoto Sensei's that don't suit 3D. I still believe that 2D expression will always have a place. 9 years after the Mega CD came out, the PlayStation 2 launched with DVD playback, and yet, even then, games didn't really embrace interactive animation. Developers feared soaring budgets. Instead, we saw mixed media approaches, anime tie-ins with parallel game releases, later called IP-based projects. They were financially safer, but rarely achieved true interactivity between video and gameplay. Even though DVD technology removed the color and resolution limits that constrained us on the Mega CD, studios still hesitated to take that creative leap. It's a little sad, honestly. I think they were expecting to set a new standard for multimedia games with Yumimi Mix, but before anyone even had the chance to catch up to them, the winds had already blown elsewhere. Meganim technology would also see some use in the first Lunar game, as well as their Urusei Yatsura game, both for the Sega CD. I hope all the Lunar heads out there have paid Yumimi her due respects. You'd be nothing without her. Where is she, anyway? After successfully sneaking into the school gym, our heroes appear to be going insane from boredom. Yumimi hears the faint gallop of a horse somewhere, and the big hole finally opens up, granting us the rather creepy visual of a giant creature peeking at us through the newly formed gap in reality. She faints once again and wakes up in Sakurako's arms, the hole now gone. She is forcibly escorted to a nearby Monsieur Donut for a debriefing. Yumimi's friends inform her on what really happened while she was out cold. Upon seeing the hole, her hair ribbon dramatically falls to the floor as she begins to transform. Yes, Yumimi Mix is secretly a magical girl game. The more anime-savvy among us could have easily predicted such a development, but I still find it charming. Yumimi Forma Real jumps down and Goomba stomps this strange creature back into the hole, before using her magical horn powers to stitch it closed. Obviously, this is also what happened when she fainted the day before.
私の顔になんかついてるの？待ってこれ！
Oh my god, it's contagious.
私
Oh my god, it's contagious. 私
の顔になんかついてるの？
Oh my god, it's contagious. 待ってこれ！ Oh my god, it's contagious. 私の顔になんかついてるの？
待ってこれ！
Oh my god, it's contagious.
たドーナツって結構好きなんだ。
信じてないわね。ゆみみ？私はこんな漫画みたいな展開は嫌いなんだってば！
私知らない！
漫画じゃなくてゲームなんですけどね。
Later that night, Yumimi has another dream about horny horses. Only this time she becomes the white horse and wanders through a forest. She rubs cheeks with another horse, discovers a bunch of holes in the forest, and then eventually falls into one before waking up. She tries to play last night off as just another crazy dream, but reality has other plans. Holes are opening with increasing frequency all over the school, and Yumimi is the only one who can close them, much to her dismay. After arranging another meeting with Rie, her dark alter ego explains to us that Earth is the intersection point of several different dimensions, its many inhabitants pouring over into our world through holes in our reality. Finding and stopping whoever's creating the holes is our biggest priority. This is what the rest of the game is about. Yumimi and the gang become amateur ghost hunters as she struggles with her new responsibilities and girlish feelings in the midst of battle against interdimensional abominations. There's not much left at the game at this point, so there's no reason to walk you through the rest. This game is all about novelty, and I won't rob you of that any more than I already have. What pleases me the most about Yumimi Mix is the sheer variety on display. There's an incredible amount of work going into minor one-off gags tucked away behind dialogue choices. They all feel like proper scenes and not just boring, binary video game outcomes. Pick a random act of violence to inflict upon the director, and you're suddenly hit with a full ninja movie parody scene out of nowhere.
手強い敵であった。しかし、弓見に休息は許されない。抜け人弓見、あどこへ行く。
This one must have taken up an entire MO disc by itself. Even the more static moments still feature constant eye and mouth movement. The game looks fantastic, like a shoujo manga crossed with a DOS edutainment game. It's all beautifully done, and I completely understand Okabe for still singing its praises 30 years later. It deserves it for being a game so cheerful, so innocent and pure of heart that it reached even me, someone who isn't any of those things. The criminally catchy opening and ending songs were produced by our friend Yasushi Akimoto and feature vocals by Yumi Takahashi. These two are a pretty insane get. Both were a very big deal around this time, and their work in the game does not disappoint. I get this urge to run to school with a piece of toast in my mouth every time I listen to them. And because this game is determined to give me a heart attack, there's also a hidden message from the cast if you play the game disc using the Saturn's media player. It's mostly the voice actors complaining that it's too hot in the studio and they're hungry and want to go home. But Akiko Hiramatsu does mention something interesting at the start.
弓見役の平松明子です。面白かったですね。なんと台風の中録音してしまいました。風の音が聞こえるかな？ではまた。
These recordings must have taken place around 1993, so I sure hope it wasn't Yancy she's talking about. To cap off the segment, I'd like to point you to this Japanese blog review I found for Yumimi Mix at yamanatoshi.com, amazingly published in March of this year. It covers the game very well and reaches many of the same conclusions I did. Without it, I wouldn't have discovered the secret cast message. It's a real testament to what Game Art's accomplished, that many people are still so fond of this game 3 decades later. Here's a chunk of the review that hit me like a truck. In short, the flow starts with Yumimi and her surroundings behaving strangely, and soon she gets pulled into the mystery herself. A classic pattern, but the way the mystery is seated is really skillful, and the tone is hilarious. In today's ultra-high-resolution era, you rarely get to enjoy pixel animation like this anymore, and it's wonderful. Even though I'm no expert in shoujo manga, I love 90s manga aesthetics, so the art style and humor really hit home for me. Let's be honest, if you're still playing the Sega Saturn in this day and age, this is exactly the kind of thing you enjoy, right? Izumi Takemoto has been in the industry for nearly 50 years and has released over 70 volumes of manga during that time. Even now at 66 years young, he's still constantly on Twitter, posting calendar illustrations and talking about all the anime merch he buys. Reading his manga was the obvious next step if I wanted to broaden my understanding of both Yumimi Mix and its creator. Unfortunately, almost none of his works are in English, including his 3 different manga about talking cats. First we have Sakura's Boundaries, a Yuri slice-of-life rom-com who's had 1 entire volume translated over nearly 20 years. The titular Sakura goes to live with her weird cat lady aunt Tamako when her parents leave for a trip to Brazil. The arrangement lasts for maybe a week at most before Tamako leaves for Germany on a business trip. because I guess no one cares about this girl. She soon meets a very strange, very familiar looking girl called Futako in school, who later moves into her aunt's house along with her sibling. The chapters deal with various exciting things like their heater breaking down, counting all of Tamako's different cats, or Sakura catching a cold. Even the girls taking their high school entrance exams isn't taken that seriously. You'd expect such a thing would be a great source of drama for the story, but it just isn't. It's all fine. And yes, I'm sure you've noticed already, but these characters are literally just Yumimi and Rie. Sakura's boundary started somewhere in 2004, so around a decade after Yumimi Mix was released. It seems like it'd be a good idea to create fully original character designs if you're gonna draw them kissing hundreds of times, but what do I know? At least he bothered to give Sakura a different hair color. Hello, I'm Izumi Takemoto. Let's skip the formalities. Well, it's a school manga this time. A romantic comedy set in a school? No, I don't think that's quite it. A school story where nothing happens? I think it's more along those lines. If you ever want to just chill, please feel free to use this manga to idle away some time. Uja uja. Takemoto's end-of-volume author comments are amazing. It's several pages of his weird self-insert getting bullied by his own characters for being admittedly lazy and blasé about everything. That reminds me, an artist who read a whole bunch of my manga said, "There's no plot here." Yeah, that's how it is. Is that really okay? Well, that's how it is. Uja uja. The next manga I read, and the one I could actually read from beginning to end, was Loop Salad, a one-volume manga published in 1992. Salad is a little girl with an eccentric adventurer uncle. Every one of its 13 chapters involves Salad being curious or throwing a tantrum about something, only for her uncle to show up and tell her one of his various absurd stories that never make any sense but fascinate the girl nonetheless. Each of his adventures play out like movies starring Salad and her family in different roles. For example, Salad hates the winter cold and wants to go to a sunny tropical island. Uncle shows up and tells her the story of a group of penguins in the North Pole who also wanted the same thing and went off on their own, only to end up in the even colder South Pole. Salad doesn't want to eat fish in the second chapter, so her uncle tells a story about an undersea kingdom going to war with the land dwellers, because the princess is sick of always eating fish and wants to take all the human chocolate for herself. You think these stories would each end with some kind of moral, but they almost never do. In fact, most of them just leave Salad deeply confused. The uncle being a bad storyteller is itself a running joke in the manga. Every chapter's title page also depicts a different historical event starring all the characters. I really love the final chapter. There's no wacky stories or even any jokes. Salad is home alone and begins hearing strange things. The clock striking louder than usual. A train somewhere in the distance. Waves rolling by on a beach. Her parents come back home and explain to her she was actually hearing her own heartbeat and blood rushing for the first time. I love how simple it is, how well it portrays this universal childhood experience, and how she tries to make sense of it. It's super down to earth, which is the last thing I expected from a manga like this. It feels like something aimed at younger kids, made to explore curiosity and learning without coming off as corny. And yes, there are Loop Salad video games, as you can plainly see. What you're looking at here is Loop Cube Loop Salad, a puzzle platformer released for the PS1. It has different sets of block puzzles, each themed after a chapter of the manga, opening and ending with voiced cutscenes and some nice original illustrations from Takemoto. You push all the blocks until they match. Interestingly, this game also has original chapters. One of them is about Salad being a nurse, which was not in the manga at all. It's all very cute and perfectly fine. Every single chapter has its own theme song with lyrics by Takemoto and vocals by Salad's voice actress Saori Sugimoto. Listening to her screech over every level is pretty funny, but quickly becomes maddening as you retry them over and over. So the devs were thoughtful enough to include a music option that allows you to choose between the vocal track, a more generic game track, or no music at all. There's a lot of charm here with something so cheap feeling. But what if I told you this wasn't the only Loop Salad game? What if this game had an updated port called Loop Salad Remix for the Nintendo DS and PSP? We even have a new tutorial chapter where Salad is a chef and wants to bake a cake. I could deduce as much from the music. There's some nice new features in this version, like extra modes in the music player, because I clearly haven't heard the cake song enough. Akiko Hiramatsu, Yumimi's voice actress, apparently also voices a character in this game called Loop. I have no idea who or what Loop is. Author statements appear to indicate it's some kind of alter ego of Salad that talks to you directly during tutorials, but the tutorials I've seen while playing involve no mention of the shadowy creature. I think I'll just have to admit defeat on this one. The past few videos on this channel have formed a kind of pattern. I say kind of because it's sure as hell not something I planned out, but I've done a pretty decent job illuminating the concept of Japanese games as interactive multimedia. Very talented people from all sorts of creative industries recognizing games as a worthwhile medium and coming together to work on them. Kaizo Hayashi producing a game that serves as a soft sequel to his film. Akiyoshi Imazaki channeling his skills as a TV director into RMJ. Yuji Nomi using his decades of experience working with some of Japan's greatest musicians to score a Mission of Hidden Souls. System Seicom getting an actual mystery novelist to write Lunacy's story. Deep Freeze being written by TV staff and produced by our man Akimoto. And now, as I've just exhaustively detailed for you, we have the one and only Izumi Takemoto. For a man who likes to portray himself as a mangaka version of the Sleepy Time Bear, he sure is prolific. And not just in his medium of choice. He's had a major hand on at least 6 different video games across 30 years. Hell, I didn't even show you all of them. Here's Day of the Click, his entry into the Click manga series for the PlayStation. It's the most literal interpretation of an interactive comic. A game where you just play around with Takemoto's art and watch a short story unfold. Plenty of people were in his position in the early 90s, but none of them stuck with games as hard as him. Yumimi Mix feels like Takemoto in game arts at 100%. In his blog post, Okabe brings up Takemoto's infectious enthusiasm, how he'd take on a bunch of extra work of his own volition, in turn inspiring the team to go even harder. This game just radiates pure Genki confidence. Excitement beams out of every frame. They were 100% convinced they had something special on their hands, and while their dream of interactive 2D anime never quite got off the ground, it was still a joy to play and I'm very thankful it happened. It's strange to think that video games were at their most interesting and forward-thinking during a time where they were largely seen as something for weirdo nerds and children. Of course, that stigma was never a thing in Japan, and as such their industry was and still is far healthier than in the West. Nowadays, games are the biggest thing on earth and they're almost invariably lame, tiresome, and pointless. The medium's normalization only caused it to stagnate rather than flourish. They're not interactive multimedia anymore so much as they're temporarily embarrassed HBO shows or the sad, doomed building blocks of abandoned billion-dollar mega franchises that instantly die on impact and wash up like bloated whale carcasses. Video games used to have seemingly endless potential. They could do or be pretty much anything. Now almost all game devs come across as these sad little worker bees, more tired and resigned than actively engaged. We've decided that ideal game forms exist now and can be infinitely replicated to maximize profits and engagement forever like a magic spell. I don't actually believe in that, of course, but it's the story we're all sticking to, no matter how absurdly wrong and wasteful it is. When Kinji Anno went to the Macworld Expo in 1994, followed by its sister event the Digital BN, he saw a world where technological advancement and multimedia outsider art could coexist. In his words, it was like a dark, twisted version of Macworld, but here the creators were all high on drugs.
Marijuana's not bad. It's good. It's good.
They were selling badges and showcasing their music and stuff like that, besides showing their games. And this really shocked me, and it made me think that, okay, game creators can be cool. It's not just nerds out there, there are actually cool creators.
RSVP, TCP/IP, HTML, HTTP, GUI, MUI, LUI, server, backend, client, front end. Is this the end?
You know, I'm glad he had fun, but I'm not sure I would qualify any of these people as cool. Silly as it may be, this experience reignited Enno's passion for making games and directly led to the founding of Warp, illustrating my point quite nicely. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure being a cool game developer has since been made illegal. All I know is that Screaming Mad George would never make Paranoia Escape in this kind of environment, and that means something has gone very wrong. As usual, I don't have any solutions for you. I can barely diagnose the symptoms, let alone find a cure. I'm actually not used to thinking seriously about games or art or much of anything really, so I'd like these videos to nudge you, and by extension me, into the right direction, where we can learn better ways of connecting with and understanding art. What else do we have? I'm not the best guy for the job, but I'm the only one who showed up. Hopefully you'll keep showing up too. And so, the kind of interactive anime that Yumimi Mix represented effectively ended with the Sega CD and Saturn era. Even among those, Yumimi Mix and Dyna Iron contained an extraordinary number of animation frames, likely more than even most Laserdisc-based games. I doubt we'll ever see their like again. I feel incredibly lucky to have been part of that brief but magical period. We genuinely had fun, and in the end we created something Guinness-worthy. To all the fans who supported Yumimi Mix, thank you from the bottom of my heart. As a small token of gratitude, please enjoy this special commemorative illustration by Takemoto-sensei himself. Even though I only asked for a simple black and white sketch, Takemoto sensei sent us an incredibly lavish drawing. In short, he's a god. I'm humbled.
ゆみみミックス、いかがでした？ゲームアーツでは今後も楽しいゲームをどんどん作っていきますので、皆さん期待しててね。じゃ、またねー。